All right, so picture this, World War II, the fate of the free world hanging in the balance. But there's this secret war going on behind the front lines, a war fought with illusions and trickery and audacity. And at the heart of it all is this guy, Dudley Clark. A mastermind, really, a military mastermind whose contributions, well, they stayed classified for decades.
Yeah. What's so fascinating about Dudley Clark, though, is that he wasn't, your typical military man. He was a bit of an enigma.
A bit of an
He
maybe.
loved cross-dressing and amateur dramatics, but he also just happened to be this brilliant strategist
Yeah,
with a real knack for deception.
it's true. He was a fascinating guy. Tom Pett, in his book Speed, Aggression, Surprise, The Secret Origins of the SAS, reveals this man who used unconventional passions and thinking to outsmart the enemy and really shape the course of the war. So this deep dive, we're going to take you into Dudley Clark's world. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one.
Yeah. This is a good one. Clark's story, it really begins way before World War II, with his childhood. During the Boer War, imagine, just a young boy, witnessing the siege of Ladysmith and seeing firsthand how a smaller, more agile force could use unconventional tactics to challenge a larger, more powerful enemy.
Yeah, those early experiences, along with, his encounters with Lawrence of Arabia and his time covering the Rif War in Morocco
Yeah.
as a journalist, it really exposed him to the power of guerrilla warfare
Mm-hmm.
and insurgency strategies. It's almost like he was absorbing these lessons
Yeah.
subconsciously, preparing for the role he'd play in World War II.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when World War II does break out, Clark sees an opportunity to put those lessons into practice. So in the wake of the Dunkirk evacuation, with Britain reeling from defeat, he pitches this radical idea to Churchill.
Now, the Dunkirk evacuation was a major turning point, in the war. It was a desperate scramble to rescue British and Allied troops from the beaches of France, and it left Britain very vulnerable. And Clark saw a way to strike back, not with overwhelming force, but with cunning and guile. He proposed these small, highly trained units to carry out raids and sabotage missions behind enemy lines.
Yeah. He essentially wanted to turn the tables on the Germans, using the very tactics that had been so effectively used against the British Empire in the past.
Right.
Churchill, known for his own bold thinking, really embraced the idea. And so the commandos were born.
The Commandos.
Yes.
Legendary for their daring raids and unconventional warfare tactics. But what's less known is that Clark's vision, it went even further. He was already thinking about how to take the fight deep behind enemy lines, into the heart of occupied territory.
Right. That's where the genesis of the SAS, the Special Air Service, comes in. While most people associate the SAS with their exploits in North Africa, their roots can be traced back to Clark's early work in Britain. He was instrumental in forming the very first parachute commando unit in the UK, even using the name Special Air Service for a unit designed to operate deep behind enemy lines.
So the SAS, this elite force known for its daring raids and covert operations, was actually a Clark brainchild from the very beginning.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. And what's even more fascinating is how Clark's focus then shifted to deception operations in North Africa. He understood that in a war of limited resources, illusion could be just as powerful as brute force. So he essentially created a fake SAS brigade, using clever tactics to make the Italians believe that Britain had a much larger airborne force than it actually did.
It's incredible. So he was already playing mind games with the enemy, using misinformation and illusion to shape their perceptions and influence their actions.
Yeah, and he was incredibly good at it. Clark understood the power of psychological warfare. He studied intelligence reports, looking for, the enemy's fears and vulnerabilities. For example, he learned that the Italians were particularly paranoid about potential Ethiopian parachute attacks.
So what did he do? He exploited that fear.
Precisely. He created a fake SS training camp for insurgents, feeding right into those Italian anxieties. It's a classic example of how Clark used his understanding of the enemy's psychology to create these incredibly effective illusions.
It's like he was a magician, pulling rabbits out of a hat, making his opponents question their own senses.
Yeah, and his tricks weren't limited to fake training camps. He went even further, using his knowledge of German military doctrine to create incredibly convincing deceptions. Like, for instance, he promoted officers to ranks they didn't actually hold,
Yeah.
and created fake tank regiments using cleverly disguised tents to mimic the way the Germans hid their panzers.
Wait, he made fake tanks out of tents?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
He did, and the Germans bought it. Their intelligence reports indicated a much larger British armored force than actually existed, causing them to hesitate and delay their advance.
It's amazing how he could take these seemingly simple ideas and turn them into these elaborate, incredibly effective deceptions.
Hmm.
It makes you wonder where he got his inspiration.
Well, remember his love for theater
Yeah.
and amateur dramatics. Those passions weren't just hobbies. They were integral to his way of thinking. He approached military strategy with a sense of theatricality, a flair for the dramatic. He was, in many ways, staging a performance using illusion and misdirection to outwit his opponents.
And one of his most audacious performances involved an actor, M.E. Clifton James,
Hmm.
who bore a striking resemblance to General Montgomery. We're talking about the famous Monty Double, right?
That's right, the Monty Double. It sounds like, something out of Hollywood, but it was a real operation, part of this massive deception campaign leading up to D-Day.
Okay, I got to hear more about this.
Uh,
So Clark recruits this actor who looks like Montgomery. What happens next?
Well, Clark, ever the master of detail, he orchestrated this elaborate ruse to make the Germans think that Montgomery was in the Mediterranean, far from where the real D-Day landings were planned. So he had James, the actor, seen by, known German agents, planted rumors about Monty's presence, even staged this fake arrival for him at the British embassy in Gibraltar.
It's mind-boggling. And the Germans fell for it.
They did. This deception, along with many others, formed Operation Cascade, a plan to mislead the enemy about Allied intentions. Clark had created this phantom army, the 12th Army, complete with fake equipment, radio chatter, and even inflatable tanks to convince the Germans that the Allies were going to invade Greece.
So while the real preparations for D-Day were underway in England, Clark was busy creating this elaborate illusion in the Mediterranean.
Exactly. And it worked brilliantly. The Germans, convinced that the main Allied invasion would target Greece, diverted troops and resources away from the real landing sites in Normandy. This deception played, a significant role in the success of D-Day, saving countless Allied lives.
It's one thing to create a fake training camp, or even a few fake tanks, but to create an entire phantom army, that's a whole other level of deception.
It is, and it speaks to Clark's, incredible vision and organizational skills, but it also highlights the risks he was willing to take. If any of these deceptions had been exposed, it could have had, disastrous consequences.
That's true. But Clark seemed to have this uncanny ability to anticipate the enemy's reactions and stay one step ahead.
He did. And it wasn't just luck. He had this deep understanding of military doctrine, psychology, and the art of persuasion. He knew how to exploit weaknesses, manipulate perceptions, and create narratives that the enemy would believe.
It's fascinating how he blended his military expertise with his love of theater
Yeah.
and his understanding of human psychology.
Absolutely. And it's this, unique combination that made him such a brilliant deceiver. He understood that deception wasn't just about tricks and disguises. It was about understanding your enemy's mind and using that knowledge to your advantage.
So Clark's work went far beyond just creating illusions. He was shaping the enemy's beliefs, influencing their decisions, and ultimately altering the course of the war.
Precisely. And his contributions didn't end with World War II. His ideas and methods laid the groundwork for modern special forces and the continued use of deception in warfare.
It's incredible to think that this one man, often working behind the scenes, had such a profound impact on the way wars are fought, even today.
It is. And yet, despite his accomplishments, Clark's story remained largely hidden for decades. He was prevented from publishing his memoirs, The Secret War, due to concerns about revealing sensitive information. Imagine the frustration of seeing your ideas adapted into books and films while you remained largely uncredited.
It's a shame he didn't get the recognition he deserved during his lifetime. But thankfully, historians like Tom Pett are bringing his story to light.
They are, and it's important that we remember figures like Dudley Clark, not just for their contributions to military history, but also for the lessons they teach us about creativity, innovation, and the power of thinking outside the box.
Absolutely. His story is a reminder that sometimes the most unconventional ideas, the ones that challenge the status quo, can be the most effective.
And it's a reminder that success often requires taking risks, thinking strategically, and understanding your opponent's mindset. In a world where information is increasingly weaponized, Clark's legacy is more relevant than ever.
It's easy to get caught up in the details of Clark's deceptions, the fake tanks, the Monty Double, the phantom armies. But what really stands out to me is his understanding of human nature.
That's a great point. Clark was a a master manipulator, not in a negative sense, but in the sense that he understood how to influence people's beliefs and actions. He knew how to exploit biases, play on fears, and create narratives that resonated with his target audience.
And that's a skill that's valuable not just in warfare, but in all aspects of life. Whether you're negotiating a business deal, trying to persuade a friend, or simply trying to understand the world around you, having insight into human psychology is incredibly powerful.
It is. And Clark's story reminds us that we're all susceptible to deception, to believing what we want to believe, even if it's not necessarily true.
It's a bit unsettling, isn't it? To think that we can be so easily manipulated.
It can be, but it's also a reminder to be critical thinkers, to question our assumptions, and to be wary of information that seems too good to be true.
Especially in today's world, where we're bombarded with information from all sides. It's more important than ever to develop those critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. We need to be able to discern fact from fiction, to identify biases, and to evaluate information sources carefully.
Because, as Dudley Clark showed us, deception is a powerful tool, and it can be used for both good and bad purposes.
And while we may never know the full extent of his influence, there's no doubt that Dudley Clark left an indelible mark on the world.
His story is a testament to the power of human ingenuity, the importance of thinking differently, and the enduring relevance of deception in the realm of human affairs.
Yeah, it's incredible to think we live in a world shaped by people like Dudley Clark, individuals who, they operate in the shadows, their influence often unseen and unacknowledged.
It's true. And Clark's story raises so many questions
Hmm.
about the nature of warfare, the ethics of deception, and the role of intelligence in shaping, the course of history.
Exactly. Like, for instance, was Clark's use of deception justified? Did the ends justify the means? These are questions that historians and ethicists, they continue to debate.
Yeah, they do. And they're questions that are relevant not just to warfare, but to all aspects of life. After all, we encounter deception in various forms every day, from advertising to politics to even personal relationships.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how much of what we perceive as reality is actually, carefully constructed illusion. It's a sobering thought, but it's also an invitation to be more discerning, to look beyond the surface, and to question the narratives that we're presented with.
Absolutely. We need to be critical consumers of information, always asking ourselves, who benefits from this story? What are the underlying motives?
Yeah, and that's one of the most important takeaways from Clark's story, the importance of critical thinking. He was a master of manipulating information, but he also demonstrated the importance of being able to see through manipulation, to understand the tactics being used to influence our beliefs and actions.
So, in a way, Clark's legacy is kind of a double-edged sword, right? He
Mhm.
showed us how powerful deception can be, but he also, maybe unintentionally, gave us the tools to recognize and resist it.
That's a fascinating perspective, and it speaks to the complexity of his character
Mm.
and the enduring relevance of his story.
For someone who spent so much of his life, shrouded in secrecy, it's ironic that Clark's greatest contribution might be to make us more aware of the hidden forces that shape our world.
It is. And as we navigate a world increasingly defined by information warfare, propaganda, and hidden agendas, Clark's legacy serves as both a warning and an inspiration.
A warning about the dangers of deception, but also an inspiration to be more vigilant, more discerning, and more willing to challenge the narratives that are presented to us.
Exactly, because as Clark's story shows, truth is often elusive, and the line between reality and illusion can be incredibly thin.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Dudley Clark, we invite you, our listeners, to continue exploring the shadowy realm of military deception, intelligence, and psychological warfare.
Yeah. Tom Pett's book, Speed, Aggression, Surprise, is an excellent starting point for those who want to learn more about Clark's life and work.
And remember, the lessons we can glean from Clark's story extend far beyond the battlefield. They offer insights into the nature of human behavior, the power of information, and the importance of critical thinking in a world where deception is, well, it's increasingly the norm.
Right. So the next time you encounter a seemingly inexplicable event, a news story that doesn't quite add up, or a situation where you feel like you're being manipulated, remember Dudley Clark.
Remember the man who turned deception into an art form, who showed us the power of illusion, and who, perhaps inadvertently, gave us the tools to see through the smoke and mirrors.
Right, because in a world where truth is often a casualty, the ability to think critically, to question assumptions, And to discern fact from fiction is more valuable than ever.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the extraordinary world of Dudley Clark. We hope you enjoyed the journey and that you'll join us again for another exploration of history's hidden corners.
Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.